Hi, everyone. Welcome to your check-in with Gwen. I'm your host, Gwendolyn McLemore, and I'm very grateful that you're here. During our time together, I will be sharing tips, thoughts, and words of encouragement as you seek to build a system that actually works for your life. Here we actually check in and we discuss how to navigate in an ever-changing world. We utilize the 5 domains of health to check in on someone's entire person. I'm going to model as I check in with myself, and this is how you check in with your loved one. So, physically, I am feeling slightly tired, drained. I have been sleeping, which is great. I don't think I'm drinking enough water today, which is probably aiding with how I feel. I did go to the gym today. I worked out in the sauna, so that's also adding to the dehydration. I have my water, trying to be better. Mentally, I feel resolved. I feel like I'm losing my organization, but I feel determined to not let it slip to unmanageable levels. I'm noticing my attention's feeling slightly burnt out, for sure. I'm feeling mentally nervous. Nervous that I'm being too much of a perfection. So mentally, I'm feeling like I'm taking myself a little too serious, taking everything a little too serious. That's one of my pitfalls for sure. We'll see how I can talk my way through it. Emotionally, I am feeling anxious. I am feeling slightly panicked, I think. I think I'm having some imposter syndrome. I think I'm waiting for something heavy to happen. Right now, my life is feeling not light, but there's an absence of emergencies, which isn't my normal. I think it's making me uncomfortable. My feelings, I'm feeling a little hypervigilant and just too aware. I'm being too picky and I'm just really trying my best. Emotionally, I'm feeling anxious. I'm feeling avoidant, probably. I'm observing all these things about myself and I'm feeling non judgmental. That's a good word. I'm feeling open. Socially, this has not been a good week so far. I have not necessarily engaged with anyone aside from my partner. I've just been working a lot and I'm in grind mode. That's the best way to put it. Life isn't necessarily requiring that of me right now. I could just be in focus mode, but instead I'm making it a grind. So socially, I'm not necessarily leaving room for connection. So I'll try to work on it this upcoming week. Spiritually, I am feeling afraid, I think. There becomes a certain point in your life where you are doing all of the work that you can possibly do in the best way that you can. And then you have to have faith that the bigger systems around you will do their part. Now, that doesn't mean they'll do their part to get you your desired outcome. That's a possibility, sure. But spirituality, I think, involves just knowing that the bigger world outside of your scope of focus is continuing to keep going, you know, whether you're doing whatever part you're doing or not. And you have to know that there will be some effect on your life, and that's okay. A sign of not trusting that the world's going to do their part is when you try to control everything over and over, when you try to control every desired variable to get a specific outcome. That's not being very spiritually free. And that doesn't mean that you need to slack off, but it does mean that you need to have faith that things will play out. So I think spiritually, regarding outcomes for this podcast, outcomes in business, outcomes in the world, I think I'm kind of gripping a little too tight to this idea of control. So I just need to lighten up. That's what this check in has revealed to me, is that I need to lighten up. Hopefully, we can go on that journey together. So, that is an example of a check in on someone's entire person. Let's get into it. If you have gone to check me out online, I do apologize. At the time of this episode, the website is not up and running. However, it will be up and running by this weekend. I've been working on it. The website for this podcast, which will be www.checkinwgwen. So it's shorthand, check in with Gwen, checkinwgwen.com. However, if you go to any of my other websites, www.gwensguidance.com, you will see that I share myself with the world as an executive function coach. A lot of the tips that I give on this podcast will be related to executive functioning skills. So I thought this would be a good episode to introduce what they are and describe how I can help you with them. Then I'll end off with a story related to executive functioning skills and how I apply it in real time. Executive functioning skills are the brain's management system for daily tasks. When you think of your brain, you think, how does it work? What are some of the core functions of this brain of mine? It's your working memory. Basically, how do you hold and then use information in your mind? So remembering instructions. So one of your brain's core functions involves your working memory, how you hold and use information, and how you remember things. Another core function of your brain is inhibition or self-control. So your brain helps you resist impulses. It helps you stay focused. It helps you stop automatic responses. It helps you work on your inhibition. It makes you not drink. It makes you look both ways before you stop and cross the street. It makes you pause before doing something dangerous. Your brain's core function, one of them is inhibition. Another one of your brain's core function is cognitive flexibility, meaning how do you think? How do you shift your mind about things? How do you adapt to when information changes? How do you try out new ideas? So these are some of the bigger core functions of your brain. Now, related to these core functions are executive function skills. And these are also just part of your brain. But these are kind of the breakdowns of those three areas I just talked about. Your executive function skills are attention, control, focus. It's task initiation. How do you start doing something? How do I get up to start brushing my teeth? How do I go from an idea to an action, right? That's task initiation. Another one is planning and organizing. And so, how do I take steps to make this idea of mine a reality? How do I take steps to accomplish a goal? That requires organizing and that requires planning. Another piece of it is prioritization. How do I put things in order? Now that I have these steps, right, and I'm organized with my materials and my information, and I have a plan, how do I put each step in order? Another skill related to your executive functioning is time management. That's a part of a good plan, time management. How can I estimate accurately? And then how can I keep deadlines? I struggle with that one a lot. Another executive function is emotional control. How can I manage my feelings to achieve these goals? How can I make a plan in response to my feelings? How do I know when to keep going or take a break? And what I just described is self-monitoring. Can I pay attention to myself internally and externally? Can I check on myself and understand what information I'm getting back? And then another and the last executive function skill is goal setting. How do I take an objective and then create steps? How do I create goals to accomplish to get me to that objective? All of these tricky little nuances and skills and functions, we all have them. This is what comprises a human brain. These are the processes that our brain is doing behind the scenes. When it comes to executive function coaching, we all have executive function skills, meaning that we all are good naturally at some of these skills, and in other areas we can use some skill development. We can use some practice. And how do these deficits happen? These deficits happen genetically. We inherit some of these deficits in our executive functions. They happen conditionally, right? What happens to us in our life, how we're raised, what we're taught, where we live. These things impact certain executive functions. And then they happen identity based, how the world treats us, right? Certain things that we can't change, certain systems that we're given access to. They enhance and then they also detract from certain executive function skills. All of our executive functions can use some work. We all can practice, we all can get stronger. However, there are certain diagnoses, there are certain conditions that amplify that we have some missing executive function skills. So the most common is ADHD, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. Your attention skills, your impulsivity skills, this is your executive dysfunction when you have ADHD. And another one is autism, ASD. A lot of the work is around correcting someone's executive function skills. So as a coach, what do? I listen. I try to identify what they think their goals are. I observe. I offer what I believe some of their goals might be. And then we come up with a plan to get there. Executive function coaching differs from traditional psychotherapy because I don't necessarily work on the trauma and the emotional pieces that go into someone's experience with their executive function, with their executive dysfunction. What I help and what I work with is what is your day-to-day routine and how can we make it stronger? That is what executive functioning is, and that is how I help individuals with it. Why this matters is that strong executive function skills predict better long-term outcomes. So you will have better relationships, better career outcomes, academically, systemically. You can hold yourself within systems around you. And with that, you will have a stronger, positive outlook on life. You are always developing and working on your executive function skills. We pay more attention and we are more intentional with teaching when we're younger and during childhood, but you will constantly be working and adjusting throughout your life into adulthood. I offer this because I have 2 hacks to share that really help me on a day-to-day basis regarding my executive function. One of them is allow yourself a theme. Um, Themed living. I have numerous calendars all over, which is a really big sign of ADHD. You have multiple calendars. And so I have calendars at home, in my office, on my phone, and I utilize all of them. And each month I give myself a title to focus on for the month. This will be the theme of these next 28, 30 days. And sometimes it's figure it out February. Sometimes it's finding your best February, right? Throw some alliteration in there. Just the repeating of a letter and a sound. It makes it easier to remember. And so alliteration is a tool. But anyway, themed living. I do this as a way to center myself each month, and it's a way to drown out the external noise. It's funny because I was talking to someone, and this individual, we're talking about it being Black History Month. It was very endearing. This was another African American person, and we were just happy talking about Black History Month. And this person tells me they went to Ghana in Africa and they got all these clothes made. And she was like, I'm determined, even if I'm working from home and no one's going to see me, I'm going to wear these outfits every single day this month. And the act of getting ready every day is going to be an act of resistance. It's going to be an act of self-love. But this is my theme, right? So when you see me, just know I have that shit on. And I just was very, very happy for her. And I thought it was very endearing. And it led me to the topic I just introduced, this themed living, right? Like, this is an act of love. This is an act of intentionality. Even if it's not an ornate routine of getting dressed in exotic cloths every day, are you waking up and journaling every day? Are you waking up and saying a short thank you to your body for waking you up in the day? Are you waking up and drinking water? Are you waking up and moving your body? Are you waking up and actively choosing to not consume the news? Are you waking up and taking a few deep breaths, right? Like, what is your theme for the month, for the week, for the day? And in terms of executive functioning, having a theme plays on several different skills. It plays on your memory, your planning, your time management, and your attention span. It plays on goal setting. So, starting with your calendar, I think that's an easy one. Think about, for the rest of February, what is my theme going to be? I haven't named my calendars yet. There's no deadline, right? I just try to do it sooner the better. It's something that I'm going to do today. However, my theme for February, I think it's going to be flexibility. Flexibility regarding my goals, my diet, flexibility regarding what I set out to do each day versus what I actually accomplish. Flexibility in regards to allowing space for new things to happen. So my theme for February is going to be flexibility. And I'm going to take acts to intentionally work on that theme. Whether that's actually stretching and trying to become more flexible. Whether that's having 2 alarms each morning if I know I didn't sleep well. Whether that's making plans at the beginning of my week and then revisiting those plans in the middle of the week, just in case something has changed. So, regarding your executive function, I think one of the first hacks I will share with you is give yourself a theme. It makes life worth living on a minuscule scale. And if you get to share this theme with others, that's awesome. It just amplifies the positive effect. I think that you can start with one area of life if it's too overwhelming to give yourself a theme everywhere. Start with your appearance for the week. What is going to be your theme? Start with a hairstyle. Start with a meal. One meal, one ingredient that you'll try to work throughout the week. It's practice. And so building your theme is one executive function hack. I think the second hack is regarding regulation. This concept of being able to moderate yourself from one emotional state to the next. Modulation is helpful when you're trying to learn new things, when you're trying to stick to a routine, when you're trying to build a routine. And to make it a more simplified concept, I've broken modulation down into 3 things. So to regulate yourself, I think you need to have 3 T's: time, tea, and a tantrum. What I mean is that time, give yourself a moment and start that moment with 3 breaths. So if you are feeling dysregulated, if you are feeling in one emotional state and you don't want to be in that state anymore, try to give yourself time. Whether that's 30 seconds, whether that's 10 seconds of you closing your eyes, whether that's 6 seconds and you're just breathing, give yourself time. You will not instantaneously go from one mood to the next. And I think when people feel something negative, they get really impatient and they just automatically want to feel better. And that's not going to help your process. You need to give yourself time to feel better, even if it's only a short amount of time. the next part of that formula is tea. I'm a tea drinker, so I love to drink tea. But what I mean is a beverage. If you are lucky enough to have one near you, give yourself a beverage, a sip of something to regulate your nervous system. It will distract your mind. You will focus on swallowing. It will cool your temperature because most of the time when we're dysregulated, our temperature gets thrown out of whack, and it has a soothing effect. And if you don't have anything to drink, and that's unfortunate, try to swallow saliva, right? Just try to take a moment to intake fluid into your body. A sip of them. It'll help regulation. The last piece is tantrum. If you are safe enough to do so, but it doesn't have to be a full-blown tantrum. What I mean by that is just raw emotionality. If you feel sad, allow the sadness, basically. Acknowledge the emotion and allow it to flow versus pushing it away. I think when it comes to dysregulation, I think when it comes to executive dysfunction, we try to minimize how dysregulated we actually feel because we're so focused on accomplishing the task. The goal can't come at the expense of our comfortability because we won't be able to accomplish it again easily, right? When we're trying to build a skill, when we're trying to build a practice, we need to feel like our practice is actually worthwhile. And if we are telling ourselves that we don't feel how we feel just for the sake of accomplishing something, that gaslighting is going to come back to bite you. And so if you feel negative about something, you feel negative. If you feel frustrated, you feel frustrated. If you feel lost, you feel lost. You feel confused, you are confused. You tantrum. And then you breathe. You allow time to pass. You regulate yourself. You take that sip. And then you try to get back to what you were doing. Being happy and being healthy, it's not about the absence of executive dysfunction, right? It's not about getting everything perfect. It's not about having some super efficient life. It's about the ability to regulate and take the steps on a daily basis to get you to where you want to go each day because that goal might change. Those are my tips regarding executive dysfunction, executive function coaching. If you have questions or comments or concerns, there is an email address, and it is gratitude@checkinwithgwen.com. And I'm sending you love, light, and gratitude for spending some time with me. Remember to check in with yourself and to be gentle while doing so. Check in with your loved ones. Check in with strangers. And I will be here to check in with you next week. Bye-bye.